Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel,
Mangotology.
I'm here with my husband Jeff, and today we're going to be discussing Marty Rathbun and the legal situations involving Marty and the Church of Scientology. Now, as we know, Jeff is an attorney, and Jeff and I have been discussing Marty Rathbun and have talked about coming on camera to make a video just involving the legal side of Marty Rathbun. Now, as you guys know, I've made several videos about Marty Rathbun discussing a possible settlement deal, as well as Marty now possibly being back in favor with the Church of Scientology, or as, well, we know that he is because he's been doing ads that have been appearing on the Scientology smear and hate websites and that sort of thing. So I wanted to bring Jeff on my channel today to discuss Marty Rathbun. Okay, so we want to go back to the very beginning of how all this different stuff happened involving Marty. So Jeff, bring us from the beginning and the legal stuff of what actually happened in the beginning.
Well, my understanding is that Mr. Rathbun left Scientology in 2004 and initially was operating as an independent Scientologist. The important thing to know about the legal situation involving Mr. Rathbun is it doesn't involve Mr. Rathbun. You may be puzzled by that. Here's the reason. It was a brilliant move on probably his lawyer's part, who's a very skilled lawyer, Mr. Ray in Texas. Because Mr. Rathbun likely, almost certainly, signed the waiver of suing the church, signed the arbitration agreement. If he didn't just sign it, he part and parcel knew about all of the implications of signing these documents because he was the consigliere of Mr. Miscavige. So any lawsuit by him against the church would be summarily kicked out for the most obvious reasons of the First Amendment. This guy was a high position person, often referred to as second in command, and the courts are not going to become involved in a dispute over what Scientology would deem him as a bitter apostate and a senior bitter apostate at that. In fact, the more senior they are, the more bitter they are, and so the legal system doesn't want to get involved in that kind of dispute.
Well, I have a question, since you were talking about Marty in terms of his squirreling by having his independent auditing practice. I wanted to ask you about squirreling. I know that you're not like a trademark attorney or anything involving that sort of thing, but from an attorney's perspective, now Marty is outside of Scientology at the time and was auditing people, and people would fly into Texas and receive auditing from him. Now the church is coming after him with the squirreling and all that you're talking about, saying the squirrel busters and that sort of thing. What about now they're claiming that he's infringing on their trademarks and using their proprietary auditing procedures and all that sort of stuff? Does Marty at that time have any basis to be able to practice it outside the church if it's trademarked? Like, is the Bible trademarked and you can't pray outside the church? You know what I mean?
Right. I don't, again, and this is going to be frustrating for some of your viewers, but I don't know the answer to that, and here's why. As you point out, I've got a Book of Common Prayer in the bedroom. If I conduct some sort of sacrament in the house involving Phineas and Penelope, I really don't think that the Archbishop of Canterbury is going to sue me, or that they're going to send folks from the Episcopal Church to picket me.
And this is a lot about Scientology when they do those sort of tactics.
Well, they're very strange people.
Right.
I
so
mean,
pick it up where you left off, because that was a little tangent.
So now where were we? He alleges he was harassed and bullied and stalked, and we see a video of that is well known to a lot of people with that "How you doing, Mr. Squirrel Lady," that really seems like she needs some. I know they don't believe in psychiatry, but that lady looks like she could use it. And then, of course, that very beefy and pleasant man who looks like he hasn't showered in a long time.
Right. Marty, I'm with Squirrel Busters Productions.
Goofball outfits.
Marty, I'm with Squirrel Busters Production doing an investigation on you and your squirrel technology that you're promoting.
They're all in the video anyway. If Mr. Rathbun makes the claims that Scientologists are harassing him, it probably goes nowhere for the reasons that we've discussed. So I don't know who had the idea. Ray Jeffrey, the brilliant lawyer, may have had this idea. Have Mrs. Rathbun sue the Church of Scientology because she was never a Scientologist. And therefore, if she was never a Scientologist, she didn't sign this paperwork, she didn't sign an arbitration agreement, she didn't agree to their wacky rules and regulations. She doesn't have to fill out a routing form. She doesn't have to go before the Claims Verification Board. And it's just simply a tort. A tort is a civil wrong. And she claims that she was harassed, stalked, and victimized by people from the Church of Scientology. And there's another video, I don't know how famous it is, but there's another lady who looks like she could use some psychotropic medications, would be very helpful. Mrs. Rathbun opens the door, and there's some lady with dark hair and sunglasses on, and she says that I just want to know if you're getting the direct technology. And Mrs. Rathbun says, I'm not a member of the church, and I don't know. And the lady says, well, I wasn't given that data. And Mrs. Rathbun says, well, yeah, they don't give you the data. That's part of the problem. And then that weird lady says, I got it, in a very bizarre, robotic manner. And this is an example of how most people don't have to deal with lunatics coming to their door, harassing them over what they're doing, why they're doing it, how they're doing it, and so forth. So the lawsuit was hers and not his.
Right.
And so that's that's the background of the situation.
So then when they were going to court and this was starting to become a viable lawsuit, Scientology had like all these attorneys in the courtroom.
Well, here's what happened, as far as I understand. The plaintiff, Mrs. Rathbun, her lawyers wanted to take the deposition of Mr. Miscavige. And
what would that entail for people who don't really know like legal proceedings? Obviously what a deposition is, but what would that mean for David Miscavige in terms of going, someone taking his deposition?
And it may not, some people may not know what a deposition is. Whenever you have a lawsuit, for those of you who watch these law shows where there's a big surprise, a surprise witness, or some surprise testimony that blows the whole case out of the water, that doesn't happen in real life because courts are too busy, and there are not enough courtrooms, there are not enough judges, there are too many cases, the system can't handle it. So the court system wants people to settle their cases before it ever goes to trial. How do they get people to do that? They make sure that each side has as much information about the other side's case as possible, because when that happens, then folks are more likely to settle their case. They know what the strengths of their case are, they know what the weaknesses of the other side's case is, they know what the strengths of the other side's case, they know the weaknesses of their own, if they're willing to be objective. And I assure you that Mrs. Rathbun's lawyers would know the pluses and the minuses. So the law allows depositions to be taken. A deposition is simply testimony that's given under oath, just like you're in court, except you're typically not in court. You're in the lawyer's office, a conference room, court reporter's office, something like that. And the latitude of questioning at a deposition is much broader than is typically allowed at a trial, because you can find out hearsay information, and you can get secondhand versions, and you can find out things that may or may not lead to admissible evidence, what the court's going to allow in court. So the Ms. Rathbun's lawyers wanted to take Mr. Miscavige's deposition, and the church fought this tooth and nail. I think they even hired a former Texas Supreme Court justice to be on their legal team. This case occurred, if I didn't mention it, I should have, in Texas. I'm not a Texas lawyer. I'm a lawyer in California, so I don't know all of the ins and outs of the procedure in Texas, obviously. But that was a very long and hard-fought situation of whether Mr. Miscavige would be allowed to be deposed or not. And my recollection is that the trial judge essentially decided that Scientology took on the imprimatur of being a business, and it was under review by the courts of appeal in Texas. And it really looked to me as an outside observer that they really had Scientology's back against the wall, that they were going to be able to depose Mr. Miscavige, and the church doesn't want that, because then he is under oath for possibly 2 or 3 days answering questions. And if he doesn't tell the truth, you can bet your bottom dollar there is impeachment evidence out there to attack whatever testimony would be provided.
So that's the thing with Scientology. They don't want it out there in the court system. They don't want it in a deposition. They don't want it revealed about their fair game policies, how they attack former critics of the organization, how they may have had private investigators on Marty for years and years when he was, coming out of the church and, beginning to speak out against the organization. So for Scientology, in my opinion, I feel that there is a value to, say, paying off or settling a case, which we'll get to, someone like Marty, because then they don't have to now say or have it out there to the whole world like we sent out private investigators. Yeah. So there is definitely a price of value for not having that information out there about their fair gaming, their surveillance. And what Scientology did was they worked hard, like even with Mike Ellis, who's like their claims verification board or whatever the official title for him is, and they said he was too overweight to be able to go to a deposition and all these sort of things. So Scientology always was trying to find an excuse to not undergo any form of questioning, having their deposition taken, and that sort of thing. So right after we left off, where does the case go?
Well, first I want to mention, how is it that this religion that says you have power over everything, that the man is too overweight to give a deposition? How did he get fat to begin with?
No, Christianity, the same thing.
Well, but yeah, I mean, they're supposed to have these mental powers that
you can control matter, energy, space, and time. Well, they didn't say eating.
they didn't say calories.
It wasn't matter, eating, space, and time. But anyway,
the Scientology is their own worst enemy at times. For example, because they're so they step in it constantly. If you have a harassment case going on, even though it was against Mr. Rathbun and not Mrs. Rathbun, there's a video of 3 idiots at the airport, one of whom has the bad teeth, to confront Mr. Rathbun as he gets off the plane.
That would be insane.
Stop committing suppressive acts. Full-time suppressive acts. Full-time. Unbelievable.
One is some kooky lady, I think she was the one that was practically orgasmic, discussing with Ted Koppel maybe about how she knew every inch of her husband's body.
I slept with Tom DeVock for almost 20 years. I knew every inch of him.
And she's there, not looking so good. Mr. Yeager is there, and he's the one with the bad teeth. And you can just tell that poor devil has been, good Lord. And then there was a third trio member. I don't remember who it was.
right, and they were at the airport and they were harassing Marty.
Yeah, and it's on video, and for heaven's sakes, if you're claiming that people aren't dispatched to harass folks, why would you have these 3 idiots show up at the airport engaging in such behavior? So
On camera.
all of a sudden, just as it looks like it's all coming to a head.
This is during the time of the filming of my Scientology movie with Louis Theroux, and I was on set with Marty, again on my channel if you want the story about what happened with Marty on set with Louis Theroux and everything. It was right around this time. People would show up on set, and they would, again, be trying to instigate drama with Marty, and that was on camera in the film. So
would they call it interbulate?
Yeah, they're trying to interbulate
yes.
Marty and that sort of thing. But yeah, that's basically what was happening pretty much around the same time when, yes, this Bible lawsuit, they have, all their ducks in a row to be able to probably take down Scientology with this legal case. Not Scientology as a whole, but in terms of like this harassment case and everything like that. So then what happens?
Well, then all of a sudden, Ms. Rathbun dismisses her lawyers and files a request to abandon her position in the appeal, which is a very odd thing for someone who appears, from all surface indication, to be about to deliver an effective blow to the enemy. I think that's what they say in the cult. And so she fires the lawyers without any reason, and clearly there doesn't appear to be any grounds for firing them. And everything just goes radio silent until her appeal is eventually, the appellate position that she took is dismissed, and the case is over. Now, right after that, Mr. Rathbun starts appearing oh so professorial in a cardigan or similar attire, in a sort of a library background, waxing poetic on the Troika, which I guess is Mr. Rinder, Ms. Remini, and Mr. Ortega. Then he begins to make a series of videos, interestingly.
60 videos, 50 videos.
But hardly anyone's watching them. That's the funny thing.
No, but there was a period where views looked like they were inflating, but it was just ways that Scientology was sending bots on his videos to make it seem like people were watching these hate videos. But like I said before, if Marty maybe made like one video, like a big 2-hour-long video or something like that, like here's what I have to say and everything, and he just put it all out there as if he was coming forward in some way, then maybe I think it could have been more effective than like an 80-part video series and no one was really watching, and he's going off about going clear, and he's going off on a tangent about Leah, and he's breaking it down piece by piece, which that's what they do on their hate websites when people are fair game. They'll break down like every chapter, every word of their book. If someone comes out with a book about Scientology saying how everything's just, fabricated and a lie and a scam and all that sort of stuff. So that's basically what Marty was doing in the language he was using, and people were wondering like what was going on with Marty and why is he making like these very strange videos. He was very nervous and he was in makeup and like the suit, and like what was actually going on with Marty and this whole entire thing. And as these videos were going out, they started appearing on the Scientology hate websites that were their own. Like this was posted on Marty's YouTube channel, but they were then being used on Scientology-run websites.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that.
And you're married to me, and I'm exposing Scientology like 7 days a week.
I only listened to half of it, believe me.
I probably have told you, but you probably weren't paying attention.
Probably not.
To what I was saying. But anyway, so yeah, they started appearing on the like the Leah ads, like on Facebook and those sort of things. Like they would have Marty on those ads. Like I'm sure you probably have seen them. Not.
I saw some ad about her, but
right, like she has ones about her. But when Marty was speaking out, he was appearing in ads and all that sort of stuff. So people were saying that this could be a possible term of a settlement. Now, if we're talking about a settlement, she drops the attorneys. If she got cash under the table, then they decide to, Marty's like making these videos, making it very publicly obvious he's working in favor of Scientology. Now let's remember this. Marty was one of the biggest top dogs in Scientology. It's not like Marty was someone who was like a public member, someone who didn't have a lot of involvement with Scientology or something and could be persuaded to go back into good graces. There's no reason, especially for someone who came out and has a blog and speaks out against Scientology. He was in the movie with me, he was in Going Clear, he was basically one of the biggest ex-Scientology defectors. Before Leah, before all that sort of stuff was going on, Marty was one of the biggest people to speak out against Scientology. So for him then to be now making videos that are appearing on Scientology websites, if Monique fired her attorneys and they took a settlement deal, like I revealed in one of my previous videos, if they say got, $1 million, which we can discuss what probably would be a figure that Scientology would pay, but say they get $1 million, they'd have to comply with Scientology's order, say, for 5 years. So every 6 months, and that's what they do now, is every 6 months you will get a settlement check if you comply with what they want you to do as terms of the settlement agreement, which is making the videos, discrediting people. Because Scientology was saying, former top dog Scientologist turned defector goes back on Scientology's side to speak out against the ex-Scientology cult critics. You know, someone who came out of Scientology now is going to Scientology saying, hey, I know everything about these ex-Scientologists and how crazy they're all a cult and they're lying and making up things and whatever. So that's what now these videos are kind of like the angle that they're taking with it. So if he got this settlement, basically what was happening was then it appeared that her former attorneys were trying to do some form of discovery to figure out bank records or something.
Yeah, they wanted to see if they got paid a settlement, because if they got paid a settlement, if Mrs. Rathbun got a settlement from Scientology, which was conditioned on Mr. Rathbun performing services such as making videos and so forth, this means that they have unjustly enriched themselves at the expense of the lawyers. The lawyers are entitled to their cut for the services that they rendered. And even if the lawsuit didn't go to a verdict or a judgment, if in California it's called a Siciliano lien. If I fire my attorneys and hire a new one, the old attorney can file a lien. They have a right to part of the proceeds. And same thing, if I do all the work, you then fire me and settle the case with an insurance company, let's say for an auto accident, I'm entitled to fees that for the work that I did. Mm-hmm. And interestingly, there'd have to be an arbitration about that, but it wouldn't be a Scientology arbitration.
Right. That's interesting. I don't think anyone's really brought that up. So what would you think in terms of, well, first, what would be like a settlement amount that you think that this case could even be worth? I mean, it's definitely in the millions, but what I was just thinking too is it's kind of interesting. Like if Scientology was smart about, you know, using Marty in some way, they would do it behind closed doors if he was taking some side check from Scientology, so the lawyers wouldn't have some suspicion or knowing that Marty's actually doing these sort of deals with Scientology. Like, you know, if Marty wasn't coming public on Scientology's YouTube sort of stuff, then it's very suspicious. Anyone who has a brain would know that Marty's then working, doing something for Scientology, and why would he be doing public good service unless, you know, there's a settlement involved? Yeah. So do you think that it'd be several $1 million that he probably got for the case?
Well, it would be her.
Or that's what I mean, for Monique, yeah.
Yeah.
Not that she's a man, but I meant, like, I'm referring to Marty, but how much do you think that they got? Because he probably got cash, so how much do you think that she could have gotten for that?
$4 million.
I was thinking was probably at least like $2 million or something that would be substantial enough for them to want to drop this case and have enough cash so they can just like move on with their life. No one likes to be enwrapped in a big legal lawsuit for years and years. You know, she probably just wanted to get it done with, but, you know, it was kind of joining the dark side sort of thing. So now, given what we know and everything we talked about, what do you think is going to happen in terms of the attorneys trying to get, you know, their lien on the settlement?
Well, the last I heard, the attorneys had a hearing, and the judge wanted them to redo their petition for some procedural reason. So I think that's the next step.
And then we just kind of wait and see what happens with this whole sort of case. I mean, it's very interesting that Scientology would, say, offer a big settlement like that, and instead of keeping Marty silent, they make him speak out.
Well, that was probably the price of admission if a deal was made. If you're someone that's going to pay a large sum of money, you want something in return besides just
silence.
The dropping of the lawsuit.
So that's all the information we have today regarding Marty Rathbun and Monique Rathbun's lawsuit. When there's other developments, I'll bring back Jeff on my channel so we can do a legal analysis of what's actually going on. This is just kind of like an overview, overcap of what's going on, and having an attorney who's able to give commentary better than I can about what's actually happening with the legal case. If you like this video, please make sure to click subscribe down below, as well as the bell icon so you get notified when I make new videos. Any updates or anything involving Scientology, you'll be the first to know as long as you click subscribe and the bell icon.
Ding, ding, ding.
I also have an online store, Suppressive Merchandise. If you go to suppressivemerchandise.com, you can get anti-Scientology t-shirts, whether it's a Marty Rathbun Squirrel Buster t-shirt or a Suppressive Person t-shirt. I have a whole line of different t-shirts. It's the holidays. It's a great time to be able to pick up a t-shirt and show your anti-Scientology pride. If you like videos such as this, I'd really appreciate it if you go to patreon.com/StephenMango. It allows you to be able to make a pledge to my channel every single month. So basically for the price of like a Starbucks coffee per month, you're able to donate to an independent content creator, be able to make videos such as this, and being able to expose and take down the Church of Scientology. So the link to that, again, patreon.com/StephenMango. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate all your love and support, and I'll see you at my next video. Thanks so much for watching.